Hello, everybody. I don't really know what to call this episode of things, but we're here to talk about the results of the Season 18 band votes. So there's a question later on that I do want to address in here. It was a very tight vote that did change because after the fact, somebody decided they wanted to change their vote. So we'll address that when we get to it. But let's jump into these things because these are going to be shaping the rules going forward for the next season. So right off the bat, Revival Blessing was banned. Not a shocking vote, I would say. I think most people expected this to be banned, so I don't think it's nothing too surprising. I think with only two Pokemon getting it, and just sometimes you have to put a lot of resources into getting past one Pokemon to just be like, nah, do it again. It's tough. It's tough for a lot of people, and I get that. So after that, we've got Chi-Yu, the only unanimous vote on here, which is pretty surprising because I think there's things that are more busted than Chi-Yu that got some votes to stick around, but happy to see Chi-Yu not in the format. After that, we have Chien-Pao, got by in a very close margin. I think that some of these closer margin things, if it was one vote away from changing, I think I want to reevaluate those next season, because obviously I think this is something that would have been heavily banned had we just like voted a week after the games came out, but I think people are starting to see it's a little bit more manageable. In League, maybe not the case. You probably have to take certain jumps to take care of it, but again, this one got by on a very close margin, so I'd really like to revisit it after the season. After that, we've got Espathra. Terrible pronunciation, but I feel like it needs some hard sounds in there. Espathra. Espathra was not banned. This is one I feel like some people might turn around on once it gets 1 or 2 6-0s this season. Espathra's tough to deal with, especially if you're able to build for it, but also if you're able to plan for it, maybe it's not so much of a problem. It just, I know there's a few people I'm afraid of having this Pokemon. After that, we've got Fluttermane. Fluttermane, I think unsurprisingly was banned. I think the only surprising thing was 3 people voted to keep it around. Interestingly, all the sound minds that were just like, yes, ban Chi-Yu, or 3 of them were like, let's give Fluttermane a shot, I feel like it got a raw deal. After that, we've got Goldengo. I think that this we made a big deal about at the beginning of this season. That maybe it's just too good because of the role it can play. It's definitely going to be a platinum Pokemon. This is another one. This is probably the only one where I'm like, ugh, I don't like how that vote went, but that's just me. Interested to see how high Goldengo is taken because I would imagine it's going in the first 3 picks in both drafts. After that, we've got Iron Bundle. This is one Logan admitted to me that he voted do not ban because he somehow thought that this was Iron Thorns. That might be confusing for some people. I considered adding pictures, but I'm like, nah, people will get it. Iron Bundle, pretty much perfect coverage with Hydro Pump and Freeze Dry, along with being able to have Flip Turn, and then Terrestrialization is a whole other bag of worms with that Pokemon, and honestly, not like a terrible defensive type. After that, we've got Iron Valiant. This is actually a little bit closer because somebody who voted do not ban did say they wanted to change their vote, but Iron Valiant pretty solidly banned. Palafin, the 0 to Hero, also very soundly banned. Not a Pokemon that people want to deal with. Roaring Moon, another pretty close vote, 7 to 4. I think 7 to 4 will be kind of the threshold where it's things that we should revisit. Roaring Moon allowed in the league. This is going to be a very good thing, especially with the fairy scarcity. And terrestrialization and everything, it's able to get around its weakness to fairy, which means if you want to resist both of its moves with a fairy type, you're going to have to either Dynamax, terrestrialize into a fairy type to resist it while being able to hit whatever it turns into super effectively. This is going to be a Pokemon that is a big problem with terrestrialization. This was considered getting banned in OU at the beginning of the generation solely because of the Protosynthesis Booster Energy Acrobatics set, which I think is still pretty viable. After that, we've got Annihilate. So, Annihilate, very solidly, people are just like, we'll ban Rage Fist, but Annihilate will be in. This does mean that Primeape can't use Rage Fist. I don't think a big deal. I don't think a lot of people are going to be clamoring after Primeape if it couldn't, if it could use Rage Fist. But then that means we also would have had to ban Annihilate entirely, and I think there's a lot to be explored with Annihilate. Like, it has moves other than Rage Fist. Like, it's got the Elemental Punches. It still has Shadow Punch, so it can actually use Ghost Stab still, and it's got that perfect stab. I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, Ghost plus Fighting is unresisted across all Pokemon. So that's very good. I think Annihilate will still be a pretty decent Pokemon. It's just going to be hard to use. It'll kind of be like how Landorus Eye with Sand Force and not Sheer Force. It's like, how do you use this Pokemon? It's kind of hard to really discover. I think this is a little bit easier to use, though. We've got Cyclizar. Bit of a split here. I think because of the plurality of this, I do think I want to revisit this next season. 4 people said we should ban Cyclizar but allow Shed-Tail. That's really because Orthworm can use Shed-Tail, and Shed-Tail's fine on Orthworm. 2 people said to just leave them in there. I'll say I voted for this. Cyclizar I do think is manageable, especially if you know that you're facing a Cyclizar. Things like Whirlwind really limit it. Phasing like that and just knowing that, hey, it's likely to go for this, you could probably work around it, maybe some Infiltrator monsters. There's options. I think it may be manageable, particularly at a Platinum level, but we'll see about that. But we ended up banning Shed-Tail but allowing Cyclizar, so no Shed-Tail and Orthworm either, which is a little unfortunate for it, but I do think this is probably going to be the healthiest and safest thing for the meta. I do want to say this one got by on plurality. More people voted for options other than this, so I think it's a hallmark of something we should probably revisit. Houndstone, one person said we can allow Houndstone in with Last Specs. Everyone else said get Last Specs out. I don't think Houndstone is a very good Pokemon without Last Specs, but this is definitely, I think, the right choice. Terrestrialization, this is obviously the big one. So, allow with restrictions, won by a vote of 6-5. Last night I was approached by somebody who had voted allow with restrictions, but they wanted to switch to do not restrict. And that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna respect that vote. We're gonna switch to do not restrict. This does, of course, kind of void this, but we'll go over it in a second. So for this season, again, this is a very close vote, so I do, especially since we're allowing it, maybe people do think it's a little bit overbearing. We can scale it back next season potentially, but this is a very close vote. First of all, another thing, I should have started with this. We had 11 responses, which is a lot higher than I thought. We did have 12 responses at a point, but it became clear that they had just kind of clicked random things and didn't really have an opinion on it. So after talking to them, they said, yeah, you can just take my vote out. Don't really need that one, which I respect. But yeah, Terrestrialization is going to be unrestricted. If it had been restricted, Terra Captains was the most positively received thing. I believe that was a contributing factor into why the person wanted to change their vote. So, just Terra Captains might not be too different than just anything being able to terrestrialize. We'll have to kind of see. I don't know. But this is what these are going to be the rules we're going with. For those of you who are wondering, because I think next weekend, as of the time of recording this, it'll be the week before the draft. Actually, no, okay, so it'll be 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, Greninja is going to become available in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet through a 7-star raid den. That will be allowed in Cinderace will be in. Charizard will be in. I don't think we have a need to ban Protean anymore, or Libero for that matter. So we'll be going from there. I have sent a number of people a tier list of ranking where they want things to be tiered. If you also want that, if you want to have some input onto the tiering process, let me know. I'll loop you into that. I'm gonna probably close that on the 23rd. So have them into me by the 23rd. I can put out a tier list shortly after that, and then it'll give people some time to plan. We'll get the draft sorted out, and right now we are still on track to start the draft February 3rd ish. I think next Monday, hop in there if you want to have a discussion. We could probably go a little bit earlier depending on how people feel about the tier list coming out, but just want to have some discussions about it. But thank you all for the great feedback. I really love this. I feel like the channel has helped drive a little bit of engagement, which is very exciting. So looking forward to next season. Any other questions, message me on Discord, comment here. But I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.